Hi, um, my name is Todd Salmons, and there are three things that you should know about me before we get started with this session for Hawaii History Day. I am an associate professor at the University of Hawaii Manoa in the English department. I'm a literary historian, which is why I can pass myself off as a History Day judge. I am currently on the Hawaii Council for the Humanities as a board member. This is my second stint doing that. And back in 1994, I was a History Day judge for the first time. So I've been doing judging History Day for more than 2 decades. And I think this is the third thing you might want to know about me. I think I've read about 1,000 History Day essays over the years. So my hope today is that after this session is over, you'll have a pretty good idea of how to write a fascinating History Day essay. That is the title of this workshop. I'm actually going to say something before I start with this slide, and it's something that obtains for any History Day project. Any successful, I'm going to talk about successful History Day projects rather than fascinating, but you know, yeah. For all History Day projects, very first most important thing, pick a topic that fascinates you. You're going to be living with this topic for a number of months. So pick something you really want to investigate. If I had one piece of evidence that obtains for every single History Day project, it would be that. Okay, so now I'm on the first slide. What I'm going to do is talk about writing a successful History Day essay. And it's a top 10 list. So although these aren't necessarily in the order of most important things, they're kind of. So top 10 do's and don'ts for writing a successful History Day essay. Number 10, do lots of research. I mean, this seems like a no-brainer, but I thought I would at least tell you. One of the judges that I've been involved with for a number of years, the first thing she does when she gets a project, whether an essay or not, is looks at the bibliography. And if she sees 2 primary sources and 3 secondary sources, that may not be a successful history project as it could be. Whereas if she sees a bibliography that has 15 primary sources and 25 secondary sources, and we do get those, immediately we're predisposed to thinking well of that project that is going to be successful, maybe even fascinating. So, and if you're, by the way, if you're not sure what a primary or a secondary source is, ask your teacher, because this is a really important distinction that you need to understand and use. Okay, that's number 9. Don't use all of the research, okay? You're gonna be tempted to do this. You're gonna have done all this work over weeks, months. Some people have already started their History Day projects in the summer. But you can't use it all, right? People write books, you're gonna read books, I hope, on your topic. You don't have the you can't write a book on your topic. I'll get to the page limit in a second, the word limit in a second. So don't use all of the research. In fact, the rule of thumb, use about 10% of what you've learned in your paper, maybe even less than that, depending on how much you've learned. Continuing with the top 10 do's and don'ts. Number 8, this is really important, okay? Do use sources other than the internet. Again, you're going to be tempted to limit your research to stuff you find on the internet. That's just that we've noticed this happening in the last 15 years or so. And that's fine. You can find a lot of information on the internet. In fact, you can find a lot of primary stuff now on the internet. And if you're looking for that, you know, talk to people about your teacher and so forth about how to find those things. Primary source material on the internet is wonderful. But the problem with working with stuff on the internet is the internet doesn't do a very good job with historical context, the sort of events surrounding whatever historical event you're talking about. So you really want to use print material, books, articles, actual articles, although you can find some of those on the internet too, okay? For historical context, which is really one of the important things we're looking for when we judge a History Day essay, is context, that you've situated your topic in history. What's going on, what's going on around it, both in time and space, okay? Number 7, and this is a little tricky, but don't forget to appropriately document uncommon knowledge source material. Uncommon knowledge is in quotation marks, because uncommon knowledge is the opposite of common knowledge. So when you investigate a topic, you're going to come across things that anybody who knows anything about the topic knows about that topic. That's called common knowledge. And you don't have to tell your reader where you first found that bit of common knowledge, because it's all over the place. You could cite 10 different sources for it. So don't worry about that. What you want to document to avoid being accused of plagiarism is uncommon knowledge, things that you find maybe only in one source, or maybe just 2. So things that really are not exactly unique, pretty much. Stuff that, you know, is not common knowledge, okay? And then of course, you know, appropriate documentation, whatever system your teacher asks you to use or you decide to use. In the English department, we use the Modern Language Association, the MLA documentation system. Again, continuing with the top 10 do's and don'ts, another do and another don't. Number 6. And again, this is something for an essay is really important. A couple of those things earlier on were okay for, you know, like lots of research, don't use it all, and so forth. That obtains for almost any medium you're going to use in History Day. But this is for essays. Do introduce, tag, and explain all quotations. So when you put a quotation in your essay, you got to do 3 things. You got to introduce it. You need to tell us why you're using it, basically. Now the tag is whose quotation is that? You can't just drop a quotation in a paper and assume that the reader knows who's talking. Your reader needs to know who is the person, the authority behind that quotation. So a tag indicates, you know, who that, it's the name of a person and then what their expertise is. Professor of history at Santa Cruz, or a writer of an important book on this topic, whatever, a little descriptive phrase, name and descriptive phrase, that's a tag. And then don't just put a quotation and a tag in the paper. You need to explain what your readers want to, what you want your readers to get out of that quotation. So that's what explaining is about. So introduce, tag, and explain all quotations. Okay, number 5, don't. And again, this is really important because we see this, like I said, I've read hundreds and probably up to about 1,000 History Day essays. Don't write a biographical, sociological, or polemical essay. So let me explain each of those things. If you are writing about a person, the temptation again is to just talk so much about that person's life that you don't talk enough about why that person is important historically. Because this is a History Day essay. It's not a biography day. You know, I don't know if there is a biography day, but okay. This is History Day. And so History Day essay, if it's about a person or people, needs to go beyond biography into explaining why that person's life is important historically. Now there's something that also happens when you're writing about a person that frequently shows up in a History Day essay, and this is a way that a History Day essay cannot be very successful. It's called hagiography. Hagiography is writing about a saint. And so Martin Luther King is, you know, the greatest person ever. If that's your focus or that your thesis, that's a hagiographical essay. And that's not history. That is, you know, something else. That's biography. Okay, sociological. So sociology has to do, at least in this context, has to do with contemporary times. So if you were to write about the coronavirus, the pandemic that we're experiencing right now, that's a sociological essay. There hasn't been enough time. We're still in the midst of the coronavirus, right? There hasn't been enough time for us to have historical perspective on it. If you were to write about the Spanish flu of 1918, okay, that's enough in the past that we have historical perspective on that. Okay, so don't do sociology. And then polemical. Again, if you're, again, I'll go back to writing about Martin Luther King. I mean, if you really think that, you know, Martin Luther King was a great person and everything he said was absolutely the right thing, and people that don't agree with him are wrong, this is polemics. This is making a moral argument. And one of the principles of history day essays is they have to be balanced. You have to present both sides of an issue. And that a polemical essay, generally speaking, whitens the good people, blackens the bad people. Okay, so avoid polemics. Okay, you got to be carefully balanced. Okay, continuing, top 10 do's and don'ts, another do and another don't. And this again is something that I've seen in the successful essays. This happens in the unsuccessful essays. It doesn't so much. Do connect the essay, and then these next three words are important: early and often, to this year's History Day theme. So this is an unusual theme because it has a semicolon and a subtitle: Communication in History, the Key to Understanding. That's the theme this year. Okay, so your essay somehow has to fall under that theme, and you have to tell your reader the connection between your essay, your topic, and the theme. You can't just assume that the reader's going to read your mind and be able to understand that, get that connection. You have to make the connection. I'll talk about that in the next don't. The early and often, though, is something, again, that the least successful essays don't do, the most successful essays do. You gotta make the connection right away, but you have to keep making it throughout the essay. A lot of what happens is you make the connection at the beginning, and then in your summary, your conclusion, you say, oh, and by the way, this topic illustrates communication in history, the key to understanding. No, what you want to do is keep the theme in your reader's mind as you're working through the paper. Not necessarily every single sentence, that's silly, but every couple of paragraphs, you should probably be mentioning somehow connecting your topic to the theme again. Yeah. Number three, and these are interesting terms, writer-based and reader-based. Don't be writer-based, do be reader-based. So what do these terms mean? You can actually put them in a search engine on the internet and you'll get all kinds of stuff about writer. This is a very important concept, and I'm a writing teacher as well as a literature teacher. And so I use this concept all the time in my writing classes. So writer-based prose is the kind of prose that we produce when we're doing a draft. We're trying to capture the ideas that are spinning around in our head and getting them down on paper. We're writing for ourselves, basically, when we're writing a draft, okay? And there's certain characteristics of writer-based prose that are associated with it. The trick, and this is really important, the trick is converting writer-based prose into reader-based prose. A reader doesn't have access to your mind, can't read your mind. You have to put everything on the paper, so that when a reader reads your essay, he or she does not have to ask you any questions about anything. How do you do that? How do you convert writer-based prose into reader-based prose? One really good way of doing it is to give your paper to somebody else and have them read it, right? They're a reader. And then have them mark in the margin things they don't understand. And then don't get upset when you see a bunch of tick marks in the margin. Take these as opportunities to convert your writer-based prose to reader-based prose. This is absolutely every single writer. I don't care whether you're 5 years old or 50 years old or 95 years old. Every single writer has to do this. Nobody writes a perfect first draft. It's not possible. So you just have to, this is part of the writing process. And so you need to learn how to do it. Okay. I switched the order here. The order up to here has been do and then don't. Now it's don't and then do. So number two, don't bite off more than you can chew. The maximum length for History Day essay is 2,500 words. If you pick you maybe will be picking a topic that people have written books about, 50,000 words, 60,000 words, 100,000 words. You've got 2,500 words. That's not very much. So the key here is that within your topic, you have to find something that is focused enough, narrow enough, that you can fully cover it in 2,500 words. That's only about 8 pages of double-spaced text, 8 to 9 pages, depending on how many words that, on a page. It's not very much. And you want to give the reader a full understanding of that aspect of your topic. And this is not easy, believe me, this is not easy. But again, as a History Day judge that's read a lot of these, a lot of people just kind of skim across the surface of a topic. And what we really want to see is a deep dive into some aspect of a topic. So maybe try to keep that in mind as one of the don'ts. Don't bite off more than you can chew. And then the final thing, and this is, award-winning essays do this at the district, state, national level. Do history. This is a history, why History Day? National History Day. This is, we're all about history in this contest. So do history. In other words, don't necessarily just, now this is hard, I understand it is, but don't necessarily just repeat what a whole bunch of other people have said about your topic. Find a topic where you can actually do some primary research and actually maybe some topic that no one has really handled yet. That's history, that's doing history. That's actually writing about something that, people don't know about or, whatever. And frankly, the best advice I can give you about this is find a local topic that there's primary material on it and it hasn't been looked at yet. And again, this is really difficult. Maybe out of those 1,000 essays that I've read, maybe a dozen have done this, maybe more than that, but not very many more. But that is really, History Day judges get really excited when we read that kind of work. Okay, so that I and my fellow judges, I'm not the only person who judges History Day, really do look forward to seeing, hearing, and reading your projects.